My Lords, I thank the noble Lord Coker for his introduction to this bill, I rise to offer Green further broad support for the general direction of this bill and the creation of an Armed Forces Commissioner. Since I have a large range of portfolios to cover, I'd like to draw a couple of parallels with other areas where we have seen similar positions created or proposed, and I think it's worth looking at the parallels with those comparisons. First of these is we've just a few days ago was in the committee of the Mental Health Bill, where there is actually an amendment was put at committee, and I think we'll return at report, to create a mental health commissioner, and that's a person to be a champion for some of the most vulnerable people in our society, and I hope that the noble Lord Coker might perhaps share that what's being said here with his health colleagues. And in that debate I was drawing a parallel of an already existing position that I think has been highly successful, that of the Patient Safety Commissioner, which was fought for and won by the noble lady Baroness Cumberledge, who's sadly no longer has now retired from your Lordship's house. But that Patient Safety Commissioner has been really important as a champion for vulnerable people. And I think, as the powerful maiden speech of the noble lady Baroness Carberry outlined, all military personnel are vulnerable, being in the chain of command and denied those union rights, those rights that we guarantee one way or another to most other workers. All military personnel are vulnerable. But I want to particularly focus on something that I think we need to think about when we think about who the Patient Safety Commissioner is. Some members of our armed forces are more vulnerable than others, particularly by reason of age or gender. Now, I note that a number of noble lords have very much focused on the tragic case, and the noble Lord the Minister did himself, on the tragic case of Gunner J. Louise Beck. And I really want to point the noble Lord the Minister again to something I said in the Moses Room, where I had just been at a meeting, and this was in the Armed Forces Court-Martial Amendment 2 debate. A representative of female personnel serving in the military said that where they feel that they are at now is going back to the attitudes of 2015, particularly in terms of the treatment of female victims of abuses. Now, I have to contrast that with the Army's statement after the inquest into the tragic death of Gunner J. Louise Beck, when the Army said that being significant changes in the Army, including the introduction of clear and unequivocal policies to state that there will be zero tolerance to unacceptable sexual behaviours. Now, I welcome that statement from the Army, but it doesn't reflect what I was hearing from serving personnel, people who speak to serving personnel and represent them now. And at this point, I really feel like I have to agree with the noble lady Baroness Goldie about the importance of the independent oversight of the appointment of this. I'm not sure whether the select committee is the right procedure, but I think we definitely need that, because this person is going to be such an important role. And I think the noble lady's comment about an anonymous whistleblower scheme is also potentially something we should be looking into, because we know when we're talking about sexual predators, they are often serial abusers, serial sexual predators, and it may be that their first victim or their second victim or their third victim, for whatever reason, doesn't feel like they can come forward, and it may be that people witness disturbing behaviour that may be difficult to know whether to report it or not, and an anonymous whistleblower scheme would potentially help some very vulnerable people in our military. Now, it probably won't surprise the noble Lord the Minister to say that the second group of vulnerable people I'm going to focus on are the young people, particularly the under-18s in our military. And I think the noble Lord knows well my views on this, but I think the public may not really have as much awareness as they need to have of the fact that, for example, to pick one year, 2021-22, 23% of British recruits signed up before their 18th birthday. And that's 30% when you just take the Army on its own. So if you think about who the Commissioner is going to have to serve, they are going to have to serve a significant number of children. And that's something that's going to have to be thought about when we think about who that commissioner is. And it's also worth focusing on the fact that the UK military focuses its recruitment on areas of socio-economic deprivation, and those recruited as minors are disproportionately enlisted from those deprived areas. And I point to some really interesting and disturbing work done by Jonathan Parry from LSE and Christina Easton from Warwick University, looking at some of the issues that arise of socio-economic disadvantage, which can have negative effects on decision making. It informs a mental bandwidth tax which affects cognition and control, and perhaps we can think very clearly about the ability to access a post like a commissioner. And of course socio-economic deprivation is associated with educational and informational disadvantage. 3/4 of junior recruits assessed in 2015 had a reading age of 11 or below, with some having a reading age of 5. We need a commissioner who is able to help people who are in this situation. Now, I just want to make one final reflection of the broader, many speakers have referred to the state of geopolitics. And of course, we've seen a great deal of talk about increasing the size of the military. And ensuring that we have a strong commissioner is irrelevant for this. And people who are talking about increasing the size of the military really need to have a look at the demographics, because what we will actually see in 2040, the 18-year-old population will be 10% smaller than it is now. If you look at some figures on health, published in the International Journal of Epidemiology, 25% of children born in England in 2003-2004 had a chronic health condition by the time they reached the age of 16. So it's really crucial that we are able to look after the vulnerable people in our military, and we need the right person as a commissioner.